Hello, Renegade marketers. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. You're about to listen to a recording from CMO Huddles Studio, our live show featuring the flocking awesome B2B marketing leaders of CMO Huddles. In this episode, Paige O'Neill, Scott Gordon, and Ali McCarthy share what it takes to start strong in a new CMO role. They discuss why the first 90 days are all about listening hard, checking what you heard in the interview process against reality, and getting aligned quickly on business goals, team needs, and where marketing can make the biggest impact. It's a lot. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. You'll be supporting our quest to be the #1 B2B marketing podcast. All right, let's get to it. Welcome to CMO Huddle Studio, the live streaming show dedicated to inspiring B2B awesomeness. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, live from my home studio in New York City. Today, we're taking a fresh look at the first 90 days of a CMO's tenure. Not to establish its critical importance. We've done that. We had Michael Watkins. We've had lots of other CMOs talk about it. But now we're really focused on exploring how AI is accelerating everything from discovery to execution to performance expectations. It's a lot. It's a lot of change that's happening now. And fortunately for you, we've got 3 CMOs who recently started at New Gigs who can share how things have changed in the first 90 days. So with that, let's bring on Paige O'Neill, CMO of Culture Amp and an industry expert who's graced our stage before to delve into the topics of B2B virtual events and driving big change. Hello, Paige. Wonderful to see you again.
Hello, Drew. Great to be here. Great to be back.
So, how are you and where are you this fine day?
I'm great. I'm in Pleasanton, California, where we're having a heat wave. It's going to be 90 degrees today. So there you go.
90 degrees. Yeah, it's crazy. You look at the weather map and it's record highs and record lows. It's a bizarre thing happening out there. Anyway, we're moving on and we're focused on the first 90 days. So talk a little bit about, we know that the first 90 days can shape a lot that follows. I mean, this is not your first CMO gig. You know how that important that time frame is. How did you approach that window when you joined Culture Amp?
Yeah, and I've been a CMO multiple times. The first 90 days is so critical to getting off to a good start, coming into the organization. And the way that I usually approach it is I want to make sure that what I heard during the interview process, you're gonna hear during the interview process certain themes. They've hired you for a reason. And so I want to make sure in that first 90 days that what I heard during the interview is the same as what I'm observing and hearing as I'm going across the organization. So what are the
Hmm.
opportunities? What is the low hanging fruit? Why did they hire me? I've read a good tidbit somewhere that it's always good to ask the question, why did I get this job versus other candidates, to make sure that you're prepared to do the thing that they hired you for and that you're prioritizing that. So I think that's so important in the first few days.
And hopefully, I'm guessing that the responses to that question, why did you hire me, weren't too big a surprise?
Yeah, well, no, can be an interesting. I mean, you usually know, but it's always good to ask, why did I get this job? Because typically
Right,
it comes down to you and a final candidate. Why did they choose you for the role? And it's
right.
interesting to ask that question, and then that helps you align your priorities because you pretty quickly want to go across the organization, listen, make sure you understand the priorities, understand and assess the team. Do any change outs need to happen? Do we need to augment the team anywhere? What are the critical gaps? And are you aligned with the executive team and the rest of the business on what you think the priorities are versus what they think they are? If not, then there's some work to do.
And so sometimes we've heard this from, so you've done your listening tour, which you're doing in a accelerated pace. You're assessing the team to make sure you have the right people in the right spot based on your past experience. But the alignment with the executive team is often tricky because they might not know how marketing works, right? And yet most of the time it's we want to grow, 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 grow. We want to grow faster than we did before. And often it's not a marketing challenge. So I'm just curious in terms of as you approach this, was there anything that surprised you in the first 90 days?
Anything that's well, I don't know that anything surprised me. I mean, I think that the good news is what I heard during the interview process was very much what I observed when I came into the business. I guess the thing that surprised me was actually a good surprise, and for the most part, was that there were a lot more leads and revenue sourced to marketing that I had originally thought. And so that was kind of, on the one hand, it was a good problem to have, but on the other hand, is that a symptom of a pipeline that maybe needs to be strengthened a bit from other sources? So that was probably the biggest surprise.
Interesting. So marketing was actually performing above what you thought it was doing. So, which is an interesting one because there are often times where things are working and you feel the need to change it just because you're the new person. And so that's got to be a tough temptation to fight as well. So I'm curious in this, and we're balancing easy fixes, hard fixes, and impact in the first 90 days. And I'm wondering how you look at that and assess those sort of easy fixes, sort of quick wins. Michael Watkins talked about easy fixes that weren't necessarily so consequential, but you demonstrate a quick win.
Yeah. And I think, the first thing too, and you mentioned this a little bit before, is and another good tidbit I picked up somewhere along the way is that, don't assume that your predecessor was an idiot. I think, it's easy to go in and think, oh, this person was here before and they did all these things and I'm going to change them. And I certainly made that probably mistake earlier in my career of just thinking, oh, I'm going to make change for change's sake. But in the case of Culture Amp, my predecessor was very much not an idiot. She did an amazing job and set up an amazing demand gen and pipeline generation organization. And so looking at the balancing the quick wins, which I agree, you always want to come in with a quick win. What I tend to do is I look for either things that the team has been trying to get off the ground that they've been held back for some reason that I think are going to make an impact. And so there's already been work done. The team's already excited about it. And you can get a quick win with the team because you accelerate the project they've been trying to get off the ground. And you can get a quick win with the business because there's a lot of headway that's already happened. And so it can short circuit the results. And so I tend to look for those. And there are always those projects around. And in terms of the long term, understanding, all right, where are the areas where we're going to need to invest? In most organizations today in marketing, it's around AI. And how can we leverage new technologies that are coming out to get us the longer term impact that we're going to have? And then how do we speed that up and align that with what the executives are expecting? Because as we know, all executives usually think they understand marketing and they're expecting to get bigger wins probably sooner than is realistic. So you have to balance all of that together.
I have to highlight a couple of things or stick, but one is the predecessor thing. I have to say, in my observation, about 80% of the time, the assumption is they were doing things wrong. That's why I'm here. And maybe there were 30% of the things that could have been done better, but it's rarely 80%,
Yeah.
right? Where like everything was wrong. But I love this idea of going to the team and finding out what projects they held back. What a joy that must have been to hear from your team. They must have gone, oh my God, nobody's ever asked us that before. That's a great way of saying, I care about your ideas. I'm hoping that you can contribute and let's make some stuff happen together. That's amazing.
Yeah.
They must have been really excited.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a great way to get the team all in as well, because there's, and I've never had the case where there wasn't one or two or more of these projects lurking about where the team had done a lot of work, they had an idea, for whatever reason it hadn't gotten off the ground, they couldn't get budget, and they're disappointed. And so coming in and unlocking that can just immediately lead to them being excited that you're even more excited that you're there.
Yeah, no, it's such a good thought, and again, it's fresh to me in all the conversations we've had over the years about first sight. So thank you for that. The last point that you made about AI and unlocking it, we're going to come back to in the rest of the show because there's a lot, and I really do want to emphasize as we move forward in the show that AI is changing. Because I remember when you and I talked about even your prep for your interviews was, you had terrific help from AI, right? Just to get the job.
Yeah. And it's completely changed. And with this job, I think this is the first time that I observed it to this extent. I leveraged it from every step of the process, from First of all, during the interview, the only thing that, and I only interviewed with two companies before I took this job. But both interviews were very focused on AI expertise or AI. I guess curiosity is a better word, right? I don't think there are really any quote unquote experts quite yet, but curiosity around AI, ideas around AI. So navigating the interview process was something that AI was forward in. And then preparing for the interview, I leveraged AI. I had to make a final presentation, leveraged AI extensively to pull that together, and called that out during the presentation that I'd leveraged AI because I wanted to demonstrate that I was able to do that. And so I don't think we should be fearful of saying that we're leveraging it, right? And then coming into the business, onboarding, it was a revelation. That's probably where I saw the biggest impact, was the ability to synthesize. I'm able to synthesize things fairly quickly. It's a skill set that I have anyway, but AI just took that to a whole new level with all the notes and transcribing, pulling out key themes, some of them that I'd missed, and developing personas for or agents, thought partners for different executive team members that allowed me to get to know them better. All of those things accelerated the onboarding
I
substantially.
love it. Well, and yeah, and you were nice enough to come back to the transition team and share that process. And I think a lot of it woke up a lot of folks. All right, we'll be back to you, but now let's bring on Scott Gordon, who is the CMO of HG Insights and who is joining the show for the very first time. Hello, Scott, and welcome.
Thank you, Drew. Great to be here.
How are you and where are you this fine day?
Like Paige, I'm in California. I'm actually in the Central Coast, and we are also experiencing some heavy heat. But can't complain. I like the summer, so it's all good.
All right. Well,
Yes.
let's talk about you stepping into the CMO role at HG Insights, and what were your priorities?
Yeah, so Paige is spot on in terms of definitely trying to get the lay of the land and see how distant it was between your interview process and what you gleaned there versus actually getting in and seeing it firsthand. Usually, it's not such a sea change of difference. But I always look at four things. I look at, hey, what's the real business objectives and the pipeline commits? What's the budget allocation? And is there a demand gen model? If not, we need one. What's the team initiatives? What's their sentiment and how's their performance? What's the perceptions of others of the team and also the team leaders themselves, getting that feedback. And then last but not least, really getting alignment with sales and RevOps. So those are the four things, no matter what. Again, like Paige, I've been a multi-time CMO. That's what I focus on first.
So yeah, let's talk about those sort of one by one, because again, you can't do all of those at once, and we're only talking 90 days. So while you're sort of listening, and you sort of need to make some decisions. Talk about, at least go through them one at a time, maybe.
Yeah. So and Drew, I mean, I'm in high tech, so 90 days, that's a good amount of time. So in 90 days, you should be able to accomplish those things because you have to set a pace and expectations. You have to get engaged, not just with leadership, engaged with your team. So 90 days is absolutely adequate time to hit those four things. So in terms of business objectives, hey, what is the CEO, CFO committed to the board? What have they committed downstream? How do those commitments relate to what marketing contributes to those objectives? And then there's always pipeline. Whether it's pure influence, whether it's influence and sourced, what are those pipeline commits and what are the assumptions behind those pipeline commits, which are super key. So I focus on that first, but that then lends itself to budgeting and demand. Even though it sounds like fundamentals, and yes, you can use AI for a lot of things, aligning that pipeline and seeing the assumptions of where you've been and where you need to go. How do you build up a demand gen model that aligns to that across all your channels? Even though that may be overlooked, it depends on the stage of the company and the maturity of the growth team, but that's very key. And then seeing whether budgets are realistic across programs, tools, and headcount.
I mean, I know CMOs who've stepped into roles where they thought they had a real budget, 5-10%, they get there and it's 1%, and yet the growth target is 25%. Those are some distances that are just not humanly possible to sort of meet. And so when you see that budget and you see those demand goals and expectations, what is the sort of the process of, I mean, you don't want to be the guy to say, I can't do this. You said we were going to have this. And so how do you navigate that part?
Yeah, Drew, that's a great question. And also a great observation. That's why, imagine if you got to that equation at the end of your 90-day cycle. That's why you got to do these things in parallel in 90 days and figure out, okay, what you can achieve, but you got to set the pace. So actually, I don't think it's wise to be, you don't have to be the person that says yes. You don't have to be the person that says, I'll do it no matter what the data tells me. Really being data driven and driving that in. Case in point, we reset expectations of percent contribution at my company, where I just joined, outside of where their original expectations were. You never know how these expectations get built up and what data sources people use. Maybe they go to the Forrester, former Serious Decisions, the Forrester group, and they see all these great metrics, but they're really not that closely aligned to your B2B business. So you really need to look at the data and have that insight and have backbone. It's okay. You'd be surprised how sales, CFOs, and CEO leadership appreciate the fact that you're coming with data and saying, hey, this is what we can meet, or these are where we're not in alignment.
Well, and I do think you have a little bit of time. That first 90 days is that moment when you can, because you're the new person, and we want you to sort of succeed, and you've noticed this issue, and you go, okay, because you can't do that in a year.
That's right. And equally important, understanding the team, their initiatives, where their sentiment is, what's the perception internally and externally to the org, and then really have they set their performance and operational norms. I never assume anything. I want to listen, take it all in, but that's that 90-day period, because that's going to set the pace and the agenda going forward.
So we have our business objectives, and then we say, okay, with this budget, we can commit to this thing that marketing will be able to do. Talk about the team and the sentiment and how you go about sort of getting to know the team and who's going to be the right team for you moving forward.
I use AI for everything. I have an AI agent that goes out and interviews everyone and just gives me the highlights. Just kidding. Definitely don't do that. I think there's an importance for a personal bond, for personal engagement. I try to talk to as many folks as I can, definitely my leaders and their team leads, and to really get that sentiment. I do the same thing with the sales and rev ops organization to say, hey, not just talk to the leaders, but give me your best reps. Let me talk to them. Let me find out and talk directly to the top 2 SDRs. So I try to take it all in, but I think bigger is really setting the expectations that I'm not here to drive my personal initiatives. It has to be a we. So how do I get the team engaged? And more importantly, I want to make sure the team feels comfortable to voice their opinion, whether or not it's I want them not only just to say, hey, this is a problem, always come with 1 or 2 solutions, but I want them to feel comfortable about voicing their opinion. That's key because you can't make a change or set a new pace without everybody feeling ownership and a part of it.
Yeah. And I think it's particularly hard right now to do that, because I think there's a lot of fear in, that AI is going to be able to do this part of my job, or AI is going to do my whole job. And AI may be able to do some of the folks that are working for their jobs. So it's like, you can't just say, oh, that'll never happen. But it's an interesting time, unlike one we've been through for a while, where there's a lot of sense of insecurity in roles. So, and I'm just curious, as you were sort of, how you sort of get a sense of, and is part of getting to know folks, getting their sense of how insecure they are feeling.
AI definitely is upon us. We have initiatives to really drive AI forward in everything that we do. I think getting across the point of, hey, you're the experts. So how does AI be a force multiplier and enhance your job and your ability to do more upper level thinking? And also that doesn't dismiss the fact that you have expertise. You have domain expertise. So getting that across and then actually pinpointing, hey, what are the actual processes? People don't really think about, hey, it starts really with what are you trying to solve and what's the back end data that AI is going to source? What's the quality of that data and how that data is being maintained? And that's directly a part of how your team needs to engage. As much as there's certainly fear, there's also some excitement, and there's also new processes and new things that we need to introduce. The org is going to change for sure with AI enhancement. So how are we a part of that change? And
I love it.
I want to avoid minimizing my team. I think we try to build the most solid team, and then how do we augment them to do more and more and more as the company grows?
I love it. All right. We'll be back to that because there's lots more to dig in on. But now let's welcome Ali McCarthy, who has been waiting patiently, who is the CMO of Asset Map and who's previously joined us to discuss a mix of topics, including product launches and ABM. Hello, Ali. Welcome back.
Thank you, Drew. Happy to be here.
Okay. And where are you this fine day?
I am about 40 miles west of Philadelphia in Downingtown, Pennsylvania.
All right. We finally got some East Coast. So I'm curious, you heard what Paige and Scott had to say. What resonated with you? And let's start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that it's very real, the notion of how is AI going to disrupt? How is AI going to enhance? What is our plan as a management team to bring our company forward? Because the interesting part about coming into a new role now versus maybe prior and earlier in your career is just that you now need to have a plan and a strategy, and we don't know as a management team, and I'm not saying my company, most companies don't know if the AI that we're putting forward today is the AI that will make us competitive in 6 to 12 to 18 months, because it's changing so rapidly. And so it's just one of those things where you need to be stepping into it and leaning into it as a team, but no one has the crystal ball yet with AI. And I think anyone coming into this role and any management team working together right now is trying to command as much as we can of what we can control and where we know we can deploy it. But again, the velocity of change is one that we can't even grasp on the downturn impact of it.
Yeah, and well said. And that, it's funny because we could have said that the first 90 days pre-AI were really intense. Now, because of one, AI enabled helping you do it, two, because AI expectations helping you get on board, and three, it's changing so fast that whatever you think may or may not be relevant moving forward. So yeah, easy peasy. First 90 days, no stress. Let's talk about what your learning process is as you go forward. I mean, Scott had a very specific sort of map for going through his 4 points and so forth. I'm curious, when you start, where do you focus?
I love that model that Scott had. And I do think that those are the right 4 pillars. In this particular role, it wasn't that I didn't use those pillars, but what I needed to focus on first in the first 90 days was where we were messaging or not messaging, meaning so financial planning can be messy, right? Your financial life can be messy. It can be complex. And the technology that Asset Map provides actually makes it simple, right? It puts it all in one page. But if we can be financial planning and we can be a presentation layer and we can be a conversation assist to an advisor and a client, where do we begin, right? If we're solving so many problems. And the issue when I came on was just that we had all those opportunities. And so in the marketplace, we were a lot of things to the marketplace. And so what I needed to do first was really take all this beautiful, rich content that we had and now figure out, okay, where do we solve just one problem? We can solve multiple problems, but can the market just know us to solve one major problem? And so that's really where I found that I needed to focus, because the people are amazing. The product is amazing, right? The people before me had done a great foundation. Still, nothing, was infallible. I had to start somewhere. And this is where I think the best place to start was with Asset.
Well, and it's so interesting. I'm reminded of a story that you read about when Steve Jobs came back to Apple and there were all these products and all these things, and he sort of narrowed it down to 4. When it comes to marketing, to me, if you don't have a great core positioning with a focus that everybody in the organization knows about, then your salespeople are chasing anything that moves. Your demand gen people don't know really, well, this is as good as that. So, and you don't get better at serving one particular customer, and you don't get known for anything. So
Exactly.
it feels like there is that. If that doesn't exist, if the sheer focus of the organization and the product story doesn't exist, you gotta nail that first and foremost, right? Because everything else will align. It doesn't matter what your goals are.
Right. Right.
If so that makes sense, a lot of
And
sense to me.
there's this element of like culture and connectivity under that as well, because they brought me on, they knew I knew the blocking and tackling of marketing, right? That wasn't the issue. And it's not that it hadn't been happening at the firm either, but where marketers today are able to separate from the pack, if you will, and grow brands is just being able to say, okay, can we bring the firm together and align under that? And what are your abilities and your skills that can enable you to do the blocking and tackling of demand gen and all the other things, and content creation and running great events, and the things that we need to do? But then where can you lean in further to the organization and help bring them together towards that? And I think, and sometimes marketing gets that task as well.
So let's talk a little bit about the process. Again, there's a lot of pressure in those first 90 days for you to help bring that alignment that you're describing around a particular sort of product benefit or solution set. How did you go about getting that alignment?
So we started with research, and we did our own research. So we just wrapped up about 3 months, again, the first 90 days, implemented it fairly early on, and we're starting to just ask and get the data. And I think that having that has been an opportunity for us to unify around our own data. And then AI just helps us bring it to market that much faster, right?
Right.
We can do a lot of that, but we can do some of the work with AI to help us bring some of the findings to market faster. So everything's accelerated, everything.
It's true. It's funny but what you're describing is using the time to build a strategic foundation. Sometimes in order to do that, you need to go out to your customers and the market to get more information. Yes, you could try to do that via, AI, but I don't know how accurate it would be. You could probably go to a company like Evidenza and get them to field it faster. From the research that you did, was it old-fashioned, one-on-ones? Were you fielding a survey? What kind of research did you do?
We did. We fielded a survey, and we just hit folks in our target audience, and it was part of our just our inbound sequence. And every time they came in, we were asking the same question, and so we started to find a lot of things that were interesting that we knew, but a lot of things that we a lot of green shoots coming out of it. And I think that that's the opportunity of just, you can look at the data that you have, and it's of course going to validate some of the themes that bubble up, but everyone's at a different place in their, how much their data lake is unified, right? And sometimes it's nice if you're just to start fresh with one little project like this, because I could debate, if I was just pulling up old content, it could be, well, that way, that's not relevant for this, that, the other reason. And so I was like, you know what, I control it. I have a research background. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to do it myself, and I'm going to own it. And I think that was me able to put my own signature on it, if you will, and to be able to control one thing in those first short 90 days. So.
And I'm sensing that you had the liberty of doing that. The house wasn't on fire. Like that might not be the solution if like their demand, like the pipeline is empty, but this is the business is doing fine. There's things that are, there's somewhat of a flywheel. We're trying to figure out how can we accelerate it by being more focused. So again, I do think the first 90 days can be very different for every CMO, depending on the situation they're walking into. And in yours, it sounds like there was an opportunity to narrow bring focus, but you had to make the business case and you had to prove that you needed data.
I mean, yes, you needed the data, but I mean, don't let me paint a rosy picture. There were certainly things that were, falling apart and hair on fire and, things that were, you had to wear multiple hats, right?
Right.
And so, but you get used to doing that as a marketer and especially as a marketing leader. And you almost get bored if you don't have 2 or 3 or 4 big things running simultaneously. So I feel as if it was the right thing to do because I knew I needed to own that to be able to get the message out. But there were certainly a lot of things operationally that we needed to fix. I mean, processes and workflows weren't optimized. People came, people left. I mean, I saw a lot on those first 90 days, but it really made me know that when you're at a company at the right time and they have picked you and you're the right person, it's just, there's just not enough hours in the day. There's so much that you want to get done as fast as you can to help that company grow because you're just so excited. I mean, it is a very fun time to be new and to have some of those, that opportunity and that space to think and breathe a little bit in those first 90 days. So don't try to rush it, I guess.
I love it. No, the fresh eyes is awesome. All right, we're going to take some time now for me and you all to talk about CMO Huddles. CMO Huddles launched in 2020. It's the only community of flocking awesome B2B marketing leaders, and that has a logo featuring penguins. Wait, what? Yes. Well, a group of these curious, adaptable, and problem-solving birds is called a huddle. And the leaders in the CMO Huddles are all that and more, huddling together to conquer the toughest job in the C-suite. There's a pun there if you want to hear it. So Paige, Scott, Ali, you're all incredibly busy marketing leaders. I'm wondering, and I'm going to let Paige and Ali go for you guys are longtime members of the community. Maybe you could share an example of how CMO Huddles has helped you.
Oh gosh, I mean, there's so many examples. It's hard to pinpoint just one, but I think, and it's amazing to me how often in my job I reference a conversation or a topic that's been talked about at CMO Huddles, or I draw on the knowledge of the collective huddle that I've gained when I'm in a situation, in a real world situation in my job. I feel like no matter what topic comes up, we've talked about it, and I've got real world polling that has been done about that topic that I can bring back to the business, whether that's about how organizations are restructuring because of AI, how to structure a marketing team, how to do a budget, what tactics are working in demand gen, and how things are changing. I mean, these are all examples of topics that are regularly talked about that I can bring that knowledge back to both the marketing team and the entire business.
I would echo that. And I would also say that I ended up canceling my relationship with my coach because I was getting more value out of the CMO Huddles. So CMO Huddles is not only my peer partners where I can get all the questions that I need answered, but also it fills that bucket on some of the coaching that I need. And so plays a very, very important role in where I am today, and couldn't do it without you in the team.
You're the best. I'd love that. I would hug you. But by the way, we're overdue for a one-on-one. So you can book that because that is part of the program. And Paige, we haven't gotten up, but I hope I'll see you on the West Coast. So Scott, you're new to CMO Huddles. And so don't know if you have an experience yet where you could share.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the one-on-one, Drew. I would just say being a new person, jumping in and just trying to get a feel for things, leveraging the website, and what's nice is it's such a diverse set of topics. You can always have takeaways and choose which ones you want to go into and learn from. And the podcast library is rich. I've enjoyed that. And then actually, getting FaceTime and meeting peers is super important. So anytime I can do that or it fits into the schedule. And so the last workshop we did was great. And so I'm looking forward to experiencing more and experiencing the Super Huddle, which we were a sponsor of last year.
I love it. All right. Well, we're so appreciative of the three of you. If you're a B2B marketing leader who wants to build a stronger peer network, gain recognition as a thought leader, and get your very own stress penguin, there's one back there, please join us at cmohuddles.com. Okay, let's get back to this topic. we were edging on this notion, and the CMO and I talked about this yesterday. You're the new CMO and you've got a staff of whatever size that came in. If you were starting from scratch, this is the question that I want to ask it. If you were starting at a new company and a new marketing department, would you be thinking about that department completely differently than you do the team that you've inherited? And it's an interesting philosophical question, but it leads to also how are you going to be able to evolve your teams to sort of be, I'm going to use the cliche AI first. So Ali, do you think if you started fresh, you would be designing a completely different team?
I mean, I do think folks would naturally go there and say, of course I would do it different, but I think you still need the folks that we have. What I think the challenge is, how can I, as a leader, impress how important it is for them to use AI and be bought in on AI as something to enable them beyond just a chat GPT prompt to fix an email, like that is, level one. How do we get them to level 2, level 3 thinking? Because we're forced to go down that road, and we want to go down that road. We're naturally curious, but sometimes the team is just happy doing their job. They don't want to disrupt. They don't want, and so it's, where do you say, okay, this may be uncomfortable, but let's go there together and let's find the joy in asking those questions and finding out how it can do it. So how do you make it a burden to a joy is what I'm trying to really
I get you.
to.
So Scott, I'm curious because do we add to the first 90 left, this sort of the AI literacy of every member of your team from, one to, I know that a CMO in our community, actually their whole company now, everyone is measured on a scale of 1 to 5. No one will be a 5 because that's someone who works at Anthropic, but it would be unacceptable for anybody to be a 1 in 3 months.
Yeah. So, I mean, and if the question is if we were starting with a new team, maybe a new company, a new team, not an existing.
Right.
So if we're starting with new, I'm still, the three-legged stool of, hey, product marketing, brand and comms, and growth are the 3 top positions I always hire. And if you're starting from scratch, which I've done in small startups, besides larger companies like this one, I look for extremely hands-on folks to be leaders because they set the pace. But now with AI, I would say it has to be not just hands-on, but it does have to be AI engaged and savvy. That world has changed. For 2 years from now, I'm looking at my organization saying, hey, I have a direct report with an AI leader and enabler literally on my team, which I never had before.
Right.
And not only that, but now I'm looking at, okay, how do I augment that team with GTM engineering and with how that's going to engage? So that's different from what I've done in the past. And that probably will be a spearhead if I were to start from scratch as being the 4th leg of the stool now.
Paige, curious from your standpoint, it's great to disagree at any point in time, or at least have a different point of view. I did talk to a CMO who's was worried that didn't have a product person, but they said, you know what, I built a product GPT to hold me for a while. And I'm curious, and it's working for them. I'm just curious if you look at this question of start from scratch versus, would it be different? And how are you evolving your team as a result of the need to use the tools and just the beauty of using the tools?
Yeah. And I think, sure, if I were starting from scratch, it would probably be different. But I think the bigger challenge that we have is most of us are not starting from scratch. The real challenge is, how do we transform our teams? And what's changing? Every board that I've talked to, every C-level person I've talked to is under pressure to go back to the board and communicate how they're getting efficiencies because of AI. And so I think there's the pressure that's coming from the top. And then for me as a leader, I feel an immense responsibility to communicate a sense of urgency to my teams that they have to skill themselves, or I'll just say, like, it's going to be a risk to their future careers. And so, at Culture Amp, we've brought in an AI consultant. We're doing workshops with all the team members. We're giving them an opportunity to learn the tools. We're taking on projects. And it's an indicator to me, if I don't have the uptake in that training from certain parts of the business, it's a red flag, right? And so I think that we've got to look at, there are roles that are, I think, going to change and probably go away or condense or shrink. But does that change the structure of the team over time? Yes. But right now, what I'm seeing more of is we're able to do so much more throughput with a smaller team than we were before. But I think it's not going to be long. Those structures are already changing. It'll happen naturally.
And talking and hearing what Paige had said, I hear a lot of tools. And I think what's missing is the fundamental discussion of data, because those tools are driven by data. So having fragmented or incomplete data plus AI doesn't mean you're just going to have poor GTM outcomes.
Yeah.
So I think that discussion is also going to start coming out more and more, that it's not just the tools, but it's, hey, where is the data being sourced, how it's being interplayed, how comprehensive is it, how trusted is it?
Right. And it feels like there's an opportunity for marketing to just say, we're gonna own this data, because sales is always, it's never been clean in what they're putting in there. So and we know that AI is only as good as the data. What I'm kind of wondering about, and this is me just sort of being philosophical, is does the entire go-to-market motion organization change? And then what's that look like, and what role does market, like, did we create an artificial construct way back when, where we had product and we had marketing and we had sales and we had customer service? And is there a new model that some companies, because they're not encumbered by the current model, are going to say, we could really streamline this now? I don't know. And no one has proven that yet. So we could just let that go. Totally with you on data.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say it also depends on the size of the org, right? Really large orgs have data and AI analyst teams that are services, and they drive that through their organization. As you go smaller, marketing or marketing plus the CEO or marketing plus CFO or marketing plus biz ops, they become the strategy team. So it's interesting dynamic of how that plays.
Okay. Staying with AI for a second and combining it with this notion of quick wins, I'm curious if any of the three of you, because the quick win is an important thing. It's a quick win with your team. It's a quick win with the head of sales and your executive team, because otherwise the first 90 days can be a listening tour and, here's the plan at the end of that. No, it is a good idea. And I'm wondering if AI is accelerating that somehow. And like, Ali, did you have, other than doing the research, was there a quick win that you were able to implement?
Yes. So the quick win in my mind is one that's repeatable. And so, versus just finding, lightning in a bottle and not being able to replicate it. So we were able to actually, the quick win for us was getting the SDRs over into marketing. So we still have human SDRs. It was an opportunity to eliminate some of the friction of getting quality leads and driving better pipeline. So we did start to see, an uptick in the quality of leads, because we were resourcing those folks. We have them in our ecosystem, and we could control the whole process. Now, where do I see AI disrupting that function? I do, but I'm glad it's in marketing right now, and I'll be a part of that, and I'll own it.
Right. And you can test it and are more likely to test it. Yes. And that's funny, because that is often, if marketing is not, contributing enough to pipeline, it's often because the SDRs are somewhere else and it's a problem. So interesting. Paige, a quick win. You did mention that you sourced a quick win from your team. I'm just curious if there were any others or things that you were able to do as you were sort of getting established what the new plan would look like.
Yeah, and staying on the SDR topic, 100% agree. SDRs belong in marketing, and our quick win, an additional quick win, was and at the same time accelerating the productivity of the SDRs by leveraging AI, automating top end sequences to more quickly funnel through MQLs and source the ones that were really showing the high intent. So we've automated that process with AI. That was a very quick win. It increased SDR productivity, enabled us to reduce the team by about 20%, and increased our conversions by about, I think, 30%.
Amazing. Scott? I mean, I know you guys are in the business of doing this too. Right.
We are a MarTech company for sure. We
Yes.
need to eat so I think our quick win actually is eating our own dog food. We came out with some really cool predictive scoring for both leads and accounts, and that equates to ABM optimization and conversion rate. So our quick win was actually, since we released it last year, is actually fully deploying it internally and seeing those outcomes. That would be one quick win and a necessary win.
You're customer zero, and it's a great place, because obviously, look, if you can't make it work, or you will, by using it, push it to the point where it breaks, and therefore you can help the product team fix stuff too, because no product is ever perfect, particularly a new one that is integrating a bunch of things. So
that's right. That's right. But I would agree with Paige. Like with AI, you can drive way more testing. So it used to be, hey, you had limited capabilities. You can only do so much testing. Now you don't have to be perfect. You can drive more testing to get better outcomes than you had before because of the scale.
And interesting, because that comes into this first 90 days, because if you have the mindset of we want to get more tests out there right away, there's a wonderful sort of innocence to it, which is, hey, we might discover something and learn something that are going to help us make some really big decisions. So yeah, adding tests and the fact that you can do them so much faster is amazing. Well, we're out of time here. So what we need from each of you are some final words of wisdom. And I want you to reflect on the discussion that we've had and sort of say, what was your single most important takeaway for someone trying to start strong in a new CMO role? And we'll do this in reverse order. So Ali, you get to go first.
I would just say be a business leader first and a marketer second.
Business leader first and a marketer second. Yes, indeed. Perfect. Okay. Scott, final words of wisdom or a key takeaway from this session.
Ali, we're the same mind. So I would definitely say your job is not to say yes. Your job is to evaluate the business and execute accordingly and get people on board for that. You get buried if all you are is saying, yes, I can, and not sticking to conviction of data and outcome.
Data and outcome. There is a key takeaway. Okay. And Paige O'Neill, final words of wisdom.
Yeah, I would say do not squander your power that you have in the first 90 days as an outside person coming into the organization. You'll never be more listened to than you are in the first 90 days. You'll never have a better opportunity to propose a radical idea, push back, carve out the space that you want to make for yourself. You have a lot of power coming into the organization. Don't squander it and don't give it away.
I love that. I want to build on that because we have another minute or two, and don't squander the power. And that's so interesting and so tricky, because that assumes that you have a point of view that you come in, or hypotheses at least, which you're quickly discovering. And you know that at that moment, the CEO, the CFO, the head of sales are probably going to lean in and listen until they find out yes or no that you were right. So how do you, and I'm curious, Scott, how do you make sure that you are balancing that so that you, as Paige says, you're not squandering the power?
Yeah, I think there's a balance. I mean, Paige, that's a great takeaway. I think it's also seeding who you're engaging with. So go to the CRO, go to the biz ops, go to your CFO, seed the ideas, see what you're trying to get across, and then leverage that so you're not just walking in blank with your power, but you've reinforced that power already.
That's so funny. I'm just having this vision of walking in with your superhero costume on that is immediately stripped away after 90 days, but you've got it you're bulletproof for those first 90 days. Ali, any thoughts on not squandering that power?
I think it just comes from a place too of caring enough to have empathy and listening to those other department heads that you have, that it's that balance of you have that power, you're using it to gauge a deeper relationship with those folks. And so, that, because this is supposed to be a long-term partnership, right? We're partners in the business. We're going to run ahead together in our own respective swim lanes. And so I think that they're happy that you're here. They want you to do what you do best. Just find the opportunity to do it together. You're gonna go faster together.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you, Paige, Scott, and Ali. You're all amazing sports. Thank you, audience, for staying with us. To hear more conversations like this one and submit your questions while we're live, join us on the next CMO Huddles studio. We stream to my LinkedIn profile, that's Drew Neiser, every other week. Renegade Marketers Unite is written and directed by Drew Neiser. Hey, that's me. This show is produced by Melissa Caffrey, Laura Parkin, and Ishar Cuevas. The music is by the amazing Burns Twins, and the intro voiceover is Linda Cornelius. To find the transcripts of all episodes, suggest future guests, and learn more about CMO Huddles or my CMO coaching service, please visit renegademarketing.com. I'm your host, Drew Neiser. Until next time, keep those renegade marketing caps on and strong.